Hi, it's EJ. Welcome to EJ's Creation, where we talk about me-made items, sewing, crocheting, knitting, crafting, and just about anything I feel like talking about. Today, I'm going to talk about how I trace my patterns. So if you're interested in seeing how I cut and trace out my patterns, stay tuned. So first thing I do is take the tissue out of the little package, of course. So here you see I have my tissue. So now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to cut my size. I'm literally going to just cut the outside of the pattern. And the reason why is because it's easier for me to get all of my pieces traced out that way onto one sheet rather than having multiple sheets laid out and then tracing and trying to fold this stuff back. It's just much easier this way. So for me anyway. So what I do is I'm going to go ahead. This is my paper scissors here. And I am going to go ahead and cut. I don't know if you can see my dog in the background. He's just kind of looking at me like I'm crazy, talking to myself. Anyways, so this is how I cut it. I'm going to cut one out because I'm going to share you. I'm going to share you. Oh my gosh. I have words, I promise I do. They just don't ever come out the way that I want them to. So I'm going to show you how I cut this out, and then I'm going to spare you the boredom of watching me cut every single piece out. And then I will come back and show you how I trace my individual size. But this is how I cut it. And what I do is I will fold these pieces, put them back into well, I'll create a vanilla envelope for it, and I will put them in there, and I will use the traced pieces. So I'm going to show you that after I cut this, right? So this is just a piece of extra tissue, and this is why I cut, because this is just too much tissue, right, to try to maneuver, and then you end up ripping it because it's very thin tissue. So I don't need this. So I'm going to crumble this up and throw that out. And then this way I can only, oh my God, this way I will cut out, well, I cut out all the pieces, but I only trace the pieces that I need rather than having the entire sheet laid out and then folding it back up. And Lord knows that once you unfold these, they're not that easy to fold back the way that they were to fit in the envelope, right? So I just, like I said, I'll cut each piece out, but I will only trace the ones that I'm going to be sewing. So for instance, if I'm going to sew version A, I will trace only version A. There's no need in me tracing every single piece, but I do cut out every single piece. Because as you are aware, that each, like all the pieces are scattered throughout the tissues, and they're not all in one tissue, so you have to go back and forth to different tissues. So that's why I do it this way, and I will show you, I'll explain more and show you so it makes more sense, because I know my words are just like, they're not here. So this is what I do. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut the rest of my tissue off camera just so that you could, you know, spare you the boredom. But you could see I still have all the sizes here. I don't know if you can see that. So you can see I have all of the sizes here, and they'll remain that way. And now I will just continue to cut the rest of the pieces on all tissue that came in the envelope. I will create a vanilla envelope, put all the pieces I do not need back into the vanilla envelope, and then trace only the pieces that I need. And I will show you how I do that. So stay tuned. All right, so now that I have all of my pieces cut out, as you can see, as I showed you before, I cut it to the largest size of the pattern. So this way I have all of the sizes. Okay, so these are all the pieces I'm going to need for this particular project, okay? So what I normally do is, and I'm just going to kind of briefly show you how I place everything. I will take these pieces, right? These are all the ones I need. Try to find, you know, pieces that, you know, I have my tripod on my table, so I'm only going to be able to show you a little bit at a time, or just in general how I do it. But you'll get the general idea of how I trace my patterns. And so what I normally do is I find all of these pieces like this, or maybe we'll do this one. Take that one out. We'll do this. Okay. So this way I have. So you see, I have a good, you know, some good pieces here, right? And I'm going to lay these to the side. And again, I would normally have more pieces out, but because I have my tripod here, it's so you could see the way that I lay things out. I'm only going to show you a little bit. Then I take my tracing paper that I get from Amazon, and this paper you can literally see very clear. Now, sometimes, okay, so sometimes what I'll end up doing is I will take the pieces down if I need to, okay? So I'm going to move it around this way so that it faces me and I can kind of see everything. And I'm going to go ahead and do exactly like I told you. I get the Scotch tape and just lay them on the side just to keep my pattern pieces in place, because as you know, these pieces are very, very light. The tissue paper on the pattern, they're super light. And this is one of the reasons why I trace them, because when we're using these and we're sticking pins in them, the tissue ends up getting ugly and then you can't reuse it. And they tear. They tear very easily. And if you need to make adjustments, it's better if you have it traced, because then you can use the traced one and make your adjustments that way, okay? So that's why I trace my pattern pieces. This way I have the originals, and again, I have all sizes, so I'm not, you know, not having it. I'm literally having all sizes. Okay, so I'm gonna lay my tissue like this over, and now I'm gonna just kind of, and what I do is I center it to where I only need, so I need it from here to here. So I'm going to cut my paper here so that way I'm not using excess, and this kind of fills up this whole area. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Take my paper scissors. Put my tissue aside. And then what I do here is I kind of, to keep my tracing paper intact, I put a piece of Scotch tape in the bottom, and I put one on the bottom, the top, and I put one on the bottom. Sometimes I will even go as far as putting them on the sides if I feel like I need it, but I can see perfectly all of what I need here. And so then what I do is I trace the size that I want. For this one, I'm going to use the largest size and then see how that works, and then I will alter it down if I need to be. So what I'll normally do is I just kind of go here and I trace, because you can see exactly everything here. You don't need a ruler or anything, but if you wanted to use a ruler, you could. But I'm not. I'm just tracing the tissue exactly. Tracing the pattern exactly how it is on the tissue. So I kind of go there, and then I do write everything that's on our tissue paper. So let me grab one here. So everything, here. So all of the notches, all of the wording, everything I do transfer it onto my tracing paper. And then I take my tracing paper, cut it out to what I need it to be, or cut out what I've traced out it to be. And then I will use my tissue paper, the traced paper, to do my pattern pieces. This way, I fold these back here, and I already have my little vanilla, my big vanilla envelope. And I use the larger ones because I don't like to fold them in tiny pieces. I want them to be as big and laid out flat as possible, so that way they're not all crumped up and I have all of these creases everywhere. But this is how I do my, I trace my pattern pieces. even if I'm going to use the largest size I cut up, again, just because I don't want my pattern piece to be all crazy. Like, I don't want it to have all kind of holes on it from cutting my notches and so forth. So that is why I do this. I prefer to just trace it and then go from there. So this way I get exactly what I want, and I can make if I need to make alterations, I can make it on my traced paper. I think I've already said that. I'm repeating myself now, but you get the idea of how I trace my pattern pieces, and this is how I do it. This way I don't have to keep taking out the original. The original will stay intact, even though I've cut them out, because it's much easier to trace. Because sometimes when we have our pattern pieces, they're like in different sets of tissue, and then you have to, you know, I don't want to risk the chance of tearing them. So I'd rather cut it up, get the pieces I need and put them onto the paper, and then trace them like this. So that way it's done. And again, I'll have all the sizes there. You never know. I may lose a ton of weight and I may get back to where I used to be, and then I don't have to use a larger size and I need the smaller size, and I'll have the piece to do so, to trace out a new size. Okay. Or maybe I want to do something for, maybe I get commissioned, right? So that's the other reason why I'd rather have all of the pieces than not. I mean, all of the sizes, not the pieces, the sizes. So you see how I traced this out. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say this is the yoke to version A, B, and C. And I'm going to write size 14 because that is what I'm traced out. So I know that this pattern piece that I'm going to use to cut my fabric is a size 14. And then I'm going to go ahead and trace all of my other little things going on here. This is cut on the fold. So you get the idea, right? This is pattern piece number 4. So I'm going to write that. Everything that I need, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go and, you know, not to bore you anymore, I'm just going to go ahead and finish copying my pattern piece and get them cut out and then put them onto my fabric, which I'll be doing a sew along for. And so stay tuned for that video. But yeah, that is how I do my pieces. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll talk soon.